What's up, members of the Peter Griffin household? It's your host of the most, Troublesome Junction, back at again with another review video. As you all can see here, we are at the tiny table, and you know what that means? It is unboxing and review time. I'm sure you've all read the title and seen the thumbnail and are probably confused of why I'm making a review on this item to begin with. But for those of you that know me, know the fact that one thing I love doing in my Thomas reviews is covering items that it feels like no one really wants to talk about for some reason, even though they're pretty fucking cool. And this item is none other than the battery-powered Nakayoshi Troublesome truck. My goodness, first impressions, he is looking crispy. And this is one of those items that I see everywhere, but no one wants to fucking talk about it, and it's just weird. I know some of you motherfuckers own this thing. Why don't you stop being a little bitch and pull out your camera, damn it? One of the items that people constantly talk about is motorized rolling stock, and when there are alternatives to said rolling stock, no one wants to acknowledge them. So I'm here to do that today. So this is, of course, from the Nakayoshi Thomas & Friends line, which was a Japanese Thomas & Friends line, which was meant to mimic the Bandai Tech / Gold Rail line, but make them essentially plastic. This was a specialty one-off item that was not made in the Bandai Tech line, and honestly, seeing motorized rolling stock is somewhat rare for Thomas & Friends, surprisingly. We have the Capsule Play Rail line, which has the my beloved battery-powered Troublesome truck. Then there's also Harvey's powered coach unit from the Tomy / Trackmaster line. And then we have this, which I feel is like the perfect blend because I see a lot of people make, you know, their own stories or custom videos and, you know, tell their own Thomas stories with typically like Erdl scale, Nakayoshi, you know, take-along scale, but I never see anyone want to acknowledge this item, so that's what we're here to do today. So going over the item itself, it's all molded in this reddish-brown color here. If you've seen the Lego brick, you know exactly what color this is, like to a T. Luckily, squeezing it, unlike, you know, the Lego bricks, or as we affectionately call them, brittle brown, this does not feel brittle at all. It actually feels quite, you know, durable, and it's got some heft to it. Surprisingly weighty too, but of course it makes sense for the motor. The bottom down here though is molded in black plastic, and it looks like you have one little exposed gear here. We might open this up just to see how the mechanism works because it just has two Phillips head screwdrivers down there, so I'm sure anyone could probably open this up. And then, of course, the load in the top. I mean, it's very clever how it's done, molding this in one, you know, solid piece of plastic, but having the load be crates, so it doesn't really look too out of the ordinary. I mean, I personally think if you want to have a kind of load or hide a battery, I think crates or maybe a tarp would really work well for these sorts of things. Though, admittedly, I think I would have probably preferred maybe a coal load or something like that. You know, but seeing how high the battery cover sits, I don't know how that'd be possible, because a coal load would probably have come up to like maybe about here or something like that. So, you know, accommodating for everything in such a small model makes total sense. That face right there, you can't get any better than that. I mean, of course, there's details not painted. It doesn't look like it has painted teeth or a mouth or anything, but there is a little bit of paint detail here. The eyebrows are painted, the eyes are painted, but that's really about it. And the front detail here, like the rivets and the planks on the side, around here it's a sticker, and also on the back it's a sticker. It's a little bit unfortunate because I know Nakayoshi is capable of giving us printed Troublesome trucks. Case in point, to do a bit of a comparison, here's a traditional Nakayoshi Troublesome truck here. This is the original Troublesome truck that I had in my original Thomas review that I did all those years ago. I still have them to this day, and it feels like this is just kind of a special little item because it does have a printed face on it and a printed back on it, which is something that I don't see very commonly in Nakayoshi Troublesome trucks. Typically, all of the detail is sticker detail. So, you know, it is really nice when they do it. And I feel like for an item like this especially, I would have loved to have seen something like that take place. I really wish I could give you a backstory of how this thing was sold or anything of that sort, but I really haven't found too much on this item here. But comparing them to this normal Troublesome truck, you really see how much bigger the motorized one is compared to this one down here. So you see the size comparisons here. They do have the same faces, and it is really nice that they gave this one a 3D molded face like the engines. I just really don't like it with Troublesome Trucks. Like, this one is really nice because it is printed on there, but I much prefer 3D faces like this because these guys are just as important as, you know, the normal Thomas and Friends characters. And especially with Troublesome Trucks being like the token throw me around characters, I'm sure there's a lot of these with sticker detail that really didn't survive the test of time. I know the same logic can even apply to the Tomy and Trackmaster ones, and yeah, as nice as those faces look, you know, having a Troublesome Truck lose its face over time, it is one of the saddest things ever. So it is always really nice when we have the 3D molded faces. Some other general comparisons here. We have the Adventures Troublesome Truck here. This thing, my goodness, these two right here were like my token Troublesome Trucks for the longest time when I was a kid. And if you watch some of my old like remake videos and, you know, Instagram videos where I would do like short Thomas clips, you would see these two like all the time. These two certainly got their fair share of play. But if you compare these, they are relatively similar in height, as you can see here. This one's just a little bit shorter, but like if you look right about there, you know, trying to get these two lined up. You know, the actual truck themselves, like they end at the same height. It's just because of this load, it's a little bit taller, as you can see right there. And of course, this one does have the CGI face, so, you know, take of that what you will. I really do like how this truck has more muted colors. This one being a much more vibrant one, which I don't mind Troublesome Trucks having a little splash of color, but like running board detail like this, and how like the original Take Along had a red running board, I really didn't like that, because Troublesome Trucks don't have that. They are supposed to have black or muted, you know, darker colored bottoms and typically gray tops. I'm fine with the planks area being different colors and whatnot, but I think that the chassis assembly should always remain this darker black color. Speaking of ones with red running boards, here's one that was in a recent video of mine. Now this one here is the All Engines Go Troublesome Truck, and I am quite a big fan of these guys. I think they look great, and if you were to line them up with the other CGI Troublesome Trucks, or even just have them in a yard, I'd say maybe go ahead and paint like the you know, pupils black rather than giving them that color in the eyes. You could honestly have a whole rake of these things and no one would be, you know, saying that, oh, that looks out of place. It would look quite nice. But these two are relatively similar in height in total. Like, even with the load and everything, these two still sit at about the same height here. But as I mentioned before, this one having the red running board, it doesn't necessarily bother me as much on this one, since it is, one, an All Engines Go character, so yes, it's going to be more colorful. But also, you know, I just think the colors as a whole, like, this looks right. But then you have something like this. As much as I love the color combination of blue and yellow, it is such a crazy contrasting color. Like, why would you pick this? This is just not right. And what would a Troublesome Truck review be without a good old Hornby Troublesome Truck and an Erdl Troublesome Truck here? These guys right here are the icons. Bringing into the other one too that also has a little different face as well. But comparing these two I would say are really on the money here. You look at the length of them especially, they're like nearly 1-to-1 in size. And even in like, I think, yep, there you go. I guess you could do that if you want to. I mean, what can I say though? They look great together though, you know? They look relatively, you know, the same because they have, again, that simple black chassis, the nice muted or just traditional industrial colors, like more muted kind of colors. Oh, look at that. You can even couple them if you want to. You have, this one is, of course, the wind-up series of the Troublesome Trucks. So you can take this little pin right here and hook it in this hole right there. It's a little offset, but I mean, hey, if you want to do it, you can fucking do it. As Leo Kim Video always says, we love it when our trains talk to each other. Now comparing it to the classic Erdl, I mean, it exists, you know? This thing is like half the size. It is a very, you know, very old style design of Troublesome Truck, but we love the Erdls. You can't go wrong with them. Getting all of these guys out of the way, let's do some more traditional size comparisons with the engines now. So here we have the Nakayoshi Thomas, we have the Nakayoshi Duck, hell, we even have the Nakayoshi D261 here, with the weird ass face. And who can forget Oliver, and of course, you know, Dodge, because he wanted to be included, I guess. But as you can see by all of these engines sitting by this truck, it is very, very tall. Again, I completely understand why, but even just the truck itself, if you were to ignore the box load at the top, it is quite tall. So if you're trying to make a series and whatnot, and I know the Nakayoshi line is very popular for such, I don't know, you might be a little disappointed by the scaling of this thing, but then again, seeing this thing powered and pushing a Nakayoshi engine like that, I mean, come on now, you gotta admit that's pretty damn cool. I always loved that this line included the side rods and everything. This is actually the original Nakayoshi Thomas that I had all those years ago. It has survived the test of time. But now moving these guys out of the way, let's get to the true meat of this item and let's see what's going on inside of it. Screws really aren't putting up much of a fight. Luckily, they're not the tri-wing screws, because anyone that uses those things, you deserve jail time. Alright, gently taking that off. Look at this. Oh, this little spring doodad came out of it, but I think this is just for the mechanism that keeps this cover on. Oh, yep, there it goes. Oh, I see how it works. So this part slides off for when you want to put the battery inside, but in order to do that, and the face fell off too, so it just kind of slots back in there, as you can see. But the way this works is this pin is on a spring, so when it's all in there and it's pushed up and whatnot, you can see this button here, so you got to push this down, because that's what's keeping it locked into place, is that little pin. But then, of course, when you push it down and whatnot, you can slide it off and put your battery in. If it will come unfucking stuck. Ah! But having a further look at that mechanism down there, it looks relatively simple. It looks like you have your traditional 8-volt motor, it looks like. You have a gear down here attached to a bevel gear, which then drives this wheel down here. So it does have a little bit of a gear train to give you that bit of ratioing, because if you were to just have this, you know, straightly attached to the motor, it would be insanely fast. So, you know, I don't think it's going to be doing crazy types of speeds. It'll probably be in between maybe Trackmaster 2 and Trackmaster 1 is what I'm assuming here. And from the looks of it, it looks like it takes a AA battery maybe? AAA it looks like here. But for the moment of truth, let's turn it on and it works. Woo! Slow ass bitch. This thing is super slow. Look at it go. But I guess, you know, for the most part, that would be what most people who would want to use this for would want. You know, I'm sure that there's a lot of people making series that rather than using fishing line and such, you could opt into using these Nakayoshi Troublesome trucks. And as I've discussed in previous videos, you get yourself some Power City train track. I'm sure that this will also be able to push along all of those rails as well. It does look a little bit long, so it might have trouble negating the curves, but I don't think it would be, you know, too big of a deal if you want to have straight track segments especially. And just like that, the truck is now put back together, so let's grab one of our engines. We're going to grab Oliver here because he's a fan favorite. And let's see it. Look at that! Wait a minute! Look at this man! Oh, you love to see it. You love to see it. Look out, he's coming towards the camera. Whoa! Coming in hot. It looks like a miniature Tommy engine, especially with the side rods going, and they're actually like proportional. They're not like the weird one-way ones like Tommy has. All of that is so nice. But one thing I am kind of noticing here, you see right here, there is not a lot of wiggle room in terms of turning on radiuses with these engines. As you can see here, the buffers are hitting each other like this, so if you were to use these on tracks, I would probably at this point say use ones with larger radiuses or have a lot of wiggle room, such as the Erdl track system or maybe even the Adventures or Superstation track system. Speaking of Erdl track system, I really wanted to showcase this thing running around in a loop, but just like my Hornby Clockwork track, my Erdl track disappeared now. So I'm unable to show this thing running on rails, but don't worry, at some point whenever I stumble upon the right rails to use or I find my Hornby Clockwork track or Erdl track, I will be sure to post videos, probably on my Instagram, if anything, showcasing this thing running. So be sure to follow me on there, Troublesome_Junction, to see me doing proper run-ins with this thing. But look at this, we're just going to be doing simple push and pull tests right now. Able to handle pushing, of course, one engine. But one thing that I was kind of thinking would be perfect for this would, if you were to grab other pieces of rolling stock. Oh my god. Look at this itty bitty ass thing. My goodness. This thing honestly kind of reminds me of the Bandai Tech / Gold Rail Troublesome trucks, or the Foolish Freight Cars, I think is what they're known as. But one of the ideas that I was kind of thinking with these guys, if we take some more of these, slap them together here, like so. I don't think I'll be able to fit every single one of them on the table. Ending it with the Spiteful Brake Van, of course, the Erdl one. Alright, this, and... well, I was gonna say it was a runaway load, but then the actual thing ran away. Fucking great. Trying this again. Oh, there it goes. It's doing it. It's doing it. I mean, it's slow as all sin, but if you wanted to have, you know, footage of troublesome trucks running away, recreate, you know, here, I can actually grab them right now. You got a close shave for duck if you want to recreate that. Or busy going backwards with runaway truckloads. You can very much so do that with awesome scales. And again, I will say that the Nakayoshi line is very universal with other toy lines, such as Take and Play, Erdl, you know, and even the more obscure things as well. Like, it's just a really good scale to do things with. And though it does kind of struggle with this a little bit, it is able to pull this load of freight cars right here. And I'm sure that if you were to line this up on much smoother track, again, such as Erdl track, I don't think you would have a problem with this thing pulling a nice rake of freight cars. I just think there's so much potential with this wagon here. And how much I paid for this thing, it was right around $15, $20 for this thing on eBay. Like, these things used to be really pricey to get because you had to import them from Japan and, you know, Thailand and the likes. But now you can just order, because there's several sellers in the US that are selling this guy. If you can get this guy, I would highly recommend getting him, especially because of the universal application. You could have this if you wanted to do playing scenes, if you wanted to just play with your engines. Maybe you want to use this thing for making your own stories, as I said before, as opposed to using fishing line and whatnot. Or if you wanted to just get it for the sake of getting it and adding another interesting troublesome truck to your lineup. You really can't go wrong with this truck. There's so much good about it. And it's just such a shame that not enough people are talking about this thing. I haven't seen anyone really use this for any videos or even do review videos or story videos and recreations and whatnot. I'm really not sure how many people just own this thing. But if you're watching this video and you don't own one of these, I'm telling you now, pick one of these guys up. This is probably some of the most fun in Thomas and Friends that you're going to get of recent. But as for a final rating here, I'm going to be honest, I'm going to give this thing a solid 9 out of 10. I would give it a 10 out of 10, but I just think the scaling issue that it has is pretty jarring. I won't deny that fact. I think in terms of scale, as I said before, if you've got the Hornby Troublesome trucks or you have the Foolish Freight Cars and you somehow convert them to connect to the Nakayoshi ones from Bandai Tech magnets, I think you could really make something magical happen here. But I do think with some of the more convenient offerings, you won't really see too much. I think for what it does a damn good job at what it is. So that's all I gotta say for this video. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you guys on the flip side.
Spent an ass! Spent an ass! Yeah!